Okay, hear me
Traffic
if you
light
can.
turns green.
You can be trapped in a religious scenario that's fundamentally based on everything in the New Testament other than the four Gospels. You can find you're eternally lecturing people on what's right and wrong, sin, sacrifice, what's wrong with the world, why various churches and denominations are not just astray but actually evil, corruption. It goes on and on. What causes you to be trapped in this scenario when you feel that you follow Jesus? When you're even loving to those around you, you extend grace, forbearance, understanding, because you love and you care.
Traffic light turns green.
And you're a blessing to each other. But you're trapped from Jesus, even though he's in you and in much of your behavior, but not in your theology. Oh yes, Christ is there. The scripture's there, although precious little from the Gospels. There's a tremendous emphasis on knowledge and understanding, because you have not experienced love deep in yourself. You see, except you receive God as a little child, you cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. And if you haven't received it as a little child, then you have to become as a little child, in the sense that you abandon this reliance on knowing and return to feeling. Return to where you lost your singing, your dancing, and the enchantment of Jesus. And I use the word enchantment. It's not just history. It's not just a factual account that's stunning because of its factuality, if there is such a word. There is now. You need to go back to where you lost it. And you may have had such a sad beginning like I had. There's a picture of me out in the car with Mum as she's holding me up. It's a soft-topped car, so the roof's off, down. And there's the sunshine, and Dad's obviously the one must be taking the photo. And she's smiling, and she's holding up this fair-haired boy, broad-faced. And his eyebrows are like, well, they're not quite an A-frame, but my goodness. You know the way the A-frame house, the roof goes? Oh, my goodness. Why? Well, first year of his life was a terrible experience in a bad fostering. Then he was rescued by this lady who did all she could with 4 or 5 kids and, lived in state housing and so on. And then, he was with Mum for something like 7 months or so, and then had to go into hospital for a year and a half with TB. No doubt the TB was because of the deprivation of the earlier years. And then when he did come back at the age of 5, he realised Mum and Dad, on the first meeting of the 3 of them together in the house, or at least the first day or so, they're warring together, at war. And so, do you see one, if you're not careful, is mortally wounded from the beginning? But Mum, in her rejection of Dad, focused heavily on son, Marshall. And, well, she put right the deprivation. Marshall loved Mum. Mum loved Marshall. They both knew it. Dad knew it, poor chap. I don't think it was good news for him, but nothing could have been good news for him given the marital situation. You can be in this situation where, at heart, you know what love is, but you can't believe it's for you. You know how to express it, you exercise it, you're loving, you're kind, united and faithful and true. You're wonderful people. I'm talking about a family I've just been with. Half the room were the children of a very serious dad when it came to religion. I mean, the children who are now, I don't know, in their 40s, 50s perhaps, 40s, yeah, 40s I think, are still using Schofield Bibles. Now, when I first came to Christianity, my first wife, yes, she was a Schofield Bible lady. And there's a great earnestness that sits on that publication on Schofield. But to give you an idea of what Schofield's like, his understanding is as different as you could be from Pentecostalism, for instance. In that freedom is equivalent to original sin in their makeup. You're not born of God, you're grafted in. Which means, of course, you're still giving the same fruit as before. You can't help it, that's who you are. Sure, your nourishment's coming from the Word. You're drawing on it every Sunday and every evening before you go to bed, and studies and goodness knows what. But you're still giving the fruit that you are. There's now tremendous input of truth and goodness. Because you're grafted in. But your mind is conditioned to handle and break down the nourishment into a frightening legalism that can so easily come from a pre-Christian letters and revelation view of Christ, not really Jesus at all. Doesn't actually cite Jesus much at all. Doesn't know or recognize what's in the Gospels. And highly likely the explanation for this is because it's before the Gospels as such have been known. You can find you have married together the Old Testament view and its justification, as in the letters. You've tried marrying this religion and God with the Jesus story. You're serving two masters. And it's stalemate. The joy is just starved and drained from all of you and those you touch and influence. They become plagued by guilt. Wretch that I am. That's the Pauline quote. My goodness. Grafted in. Honest graft, but grafted. You see, my children can't sin. Not in my eyes. Oh, of course they're incompetent. They do this, that, and the other, and willfully. My goodness, yes. Because they're children. But I don't count it as sin. I extend grace. I steer. I maneuver. I pay the cost. I forgive. And I love them. They're my children. Well, quite honestly, I do the same for any children, but do you know? How much more God for you? How much more? When Jesus tells us more than 200 times in the Gospels that the name of God is Father, why didn't you get the message? Is it because you spent so much time in the letters that you didn't read and memorize John 17 alone? Why'd you go elsewhere? Didn't you smell a rat the moment the justification was going back to the Old Testament instead of what Jesus said, did, taught? Oh, sure, it gives lip service to what he was. The perfect solution to the pagan sacrifice. And there's blood everywhere. An atonement for your miserable, wretched, sinful state. You won't find Jesus here. You won't find the Jesus story in the letters or Revelation. I'll tell you what the revelation of Revelation is. That it's the only revelation you can get from an Old Testament religion. And it's a nightmare. And that religion did not do the Jewish people much good. Their historical record is horrendous, as you know. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You can most earnestly hold the equivalent of an Old Testament religion stroke New Testament letters, Bible. You can, in accordance and in godly fear, become very loving and kind, but at heart feel that almost the rest of the planet is lost in sin and are unclean until they embrace the impenetrable security of the prison that you're in, from which you throw frightening texts through the bars out into the world, in the hope that the wind will blow, that God will put this in someone's hand, and they choose to attempt to come and rescue you, though they may flee in tears from the sorrow that they have encountered of your life. I speak Jesus. I speak Jesus, I speak Jesus, because I have no idea how to reach you, how to rescue you from this pagan, satanic religion. That holds the gospel in its hand and preaches Paul. It preaches forgiveness and the condemnation of all those that have fallen. That preaches adoption as substitute for birth. We are born of our Heavenly Father. We are His children. And if you have any warmth at all towards even just your children, then you are on track to what you have called salvation and what I would call growing up. How right the Buddhist is that when it comes to secular man, they are all the consequence of causes and conditions, in the present and the past at least. Well, Jesus does not make exception to that. It's just that He brings in a cause and condition of God, and that transforms your whole being, spirit and person. You are born of God. You need to draw much closer to Jesus than ever you've been to Paul. And you need to hear the Old Testament and Paul occasionally to guard you firmly against becoming such yourself. Don't know how to wind this up, Heavenly Father. Show me. Family I was out, they have a little girl. She's handicapped, does some erratic things. She's a sweetheart. Her dad extends tremendous grace and freedom towards her. He loves her. He's a Jekyll and Hyde. He's this loving person in trying to relate to people. But his religion is a nightmare of rejecting all other religion, all other Christianity. And that's enough to give him a loneliness that only his daughter can express. With his daughter for less than half an hour. And this little girl of 11 realizes I'm an only child, and she reaches across the table to me instantly. Is it lonely? I said, yes, no. She says, yes, it is, isn't it? I get more and more lonely the older I get. We then sort of said it at the same time. We need Jesus, don't we? By which we both mean we need the love of Jesus, not the condemnation of Paul. Not the pagan sacrifice. We need family. She suffers from one thing and one thing only. That which causes the fearful loss of family. The reason our Heavenly Father has thrown this vast universe into existence is that he wants family. Family that's going to be the fantastic harmony of the host of heaven. And if he feels that need, so do his children. If that little girl feels the loneliness, it's because it's in Dad, and she knows it's in Dad, and she knows it's in her, and she can smell it out a mile off when she meets Marshall. And she does have Jesus, and she knows Marshall has. And she has joy and hope and freedom. She even has freedom with her strict dad, because he loves her. He loves her because she is joy and his daughter. So I maintain that we have suffered this great deprivation of not truly knowing Jesus, perhaps knowing secular battles, perhaps knowing religious battles, but not knowing Jesus. And that the experience and the loneliness of such has transformed us into loving Jesus. That is why we're experiencing such problems. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for blessing us with such problems, that we come to know the importance of faithfulness, of family, of love, as opposed to the importance of knowledge, understanding, and scriptures that are anything but a blessing. Thank you, Heavenly Father.